Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, here I am, and there you are. And hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for a friendly Friday on this Friday, March the 7th, as we are rolling live on rumble.com and on X and on YouTube. Getting strange new respect on YouTube. Folks that are following us over there, thanks for doing that. If you're watching right now, make sure you just go ahead and hit the like button for me. I would appreciate it. It would be helpful. Go ahead and follow us wherever you might be interested. And if you're listening and you're like, hey, I'm really sick of these pop-up ads because you happen to be watching when we're not live, you can do it on Spotify. Go to KyleSeraphinShow.com or just follow us and look on Spotify. You'll be able to get it ad-free. You'll also have the video and the audio, and you can choose whichever one you want. Maybe you're like my mother and you listen to the show. Yes, my mom listens, and she's out there and she says, well, I'm walking the dogs, and I don't have time to look at the video. I got to have the phone in my pocket. You can do that over on Spotify, and we'd appreciate it if you do. Give us a 5-star review. Bump us up even better. It's free. It helps us out. We really appreciate it. Today, we're going to be getting into some spicy stuff. I'm going to lead off with this push. Democrats are trying to do social media. They saw that Donald Trump was successful using Joe Rogan, that he was out there using quote unquote alternative media, that he was going direct to the people. So they have tried their hand at it, and I don't think they're very good at it. In fact, their hands are very visible, and they're holding the microphones awkwardly and weirdly. So they're doing all these TikTok sit downs. We're going to kind of go through some of that. Major stuff we're going to talk about. Apparently, if you cut taxes, that costs money. That's going to be interesting. I brought Steve Friend on to talk about it because he is an accountant, even though that's kind of a secret talent of his. We'll expose it. We're going to talk a little bit about Ukraine. We're going to talk about transgender surgery. And the fact that if you think that you are a woman when in fact you are a man born with a penis, that you actually have this mental illness. And for some reason, people are starting to catch back on and you're now allowed to talk about it again. So that's cool. Thank you, Donald Trump, for that, I assume. A couple other things. Canadians are fighting back. They are pushing back against the tariffs. We've got a pause on the tariffs in Mexico. So we're going to talk a little bit about economics there as well. Less fun, but we'll make it fun. And I promise you, I've got some fun clips to play along with. So that's where we're going today. I think we're going to enjoy ourselves. And if we don't, it's your fault because we're going to make it fun, guaranteed. All right, before we do, let's say thanks to the folks over at My Patriot Supply. You get there by going to preparelikekyle.com. Very easy to remember, preparelikekyle.com. Ask yourself, are you sleeping well at night? Maybe you're sleeping a little better because you've got a guy in the office that seems to know what he's doing. Real peace of mind is going to come from knowing that your family is prepared. The federal government will never save you. My Patriot Supply is America's most trusted name in emergency preparedness. And they're offering a limited time discount on the best-selling 3-month emergency food kit. I'm about to move from one house to another, and I've got to move 2 of these darn things, and there's a lot of food in it, which is great. It's a good sense of like an insurance policy in my closet. It's not your typical survival food. It gives you 2,000 calories a day, 100% of the recommended value for 12 different essential vitamins and minerals for 90 days for 2 adults. That's meals and extras and beef and chicken and fruits and vegetables and sides and all the other things that come along with it. It will last for up to 25 years in storage, and it still tastes like you're cooking something at home, which is a nice benefit. If you are an MRE person, maybe you know, like I know, I'm not a big fan of those things. This gives you alternative, a lot of freeze-dried stuff in there. The pandemic did teach us that stores can empty out quickly, so don't wait for another crisis. Your 3-month emergency food kit ships fast and free. You'll get a disaster replacement warranty and 24/7 US-based support for this. Special discount available at preparelikekyle.com. Again, preparelikekyle.com. Like you see on the screen, save $100 and protect your family's future. If you order today before 3 p.m., they will ship it this Friday and get it in the mail to you so they can block your driveway with a UPS truck like they did to me. Preparelikekyle.com. Let's freaking go. All right. So we've got this one guy, and his name is Steve Friend, and there he is. Good morning, Steve Friend.
Oh, good morning, and Mazel Tov on the YouTube explosion you're seeing here, sir. Just in time for you to talk about trannies and get shadow banned all over again.
That's exactly right. We're going to catch a strike today, probably. There's no reason for it, though. We're going to be bringing up academic studies. We're going to be bringing up media coverage. This is all fair use stuff, and this should all be fair game. These are scientific discussions and media malfeasance in the area of propaganda. So I'm going to lead you through these. I didn't preview this, right? You didn't see this beforehand.
No, coming in cold. You like coming in cold takes.
I do like a cold take. Okay, in addition to, this is not as cold of a take as it could be, but it is pretty cold. This is where we want to go. There's kind of this outsized effort to be in like new media, right?
Oh,
and one
absolutely.
of those things we've covered down on like the alpha influencer thing where you're supposed to do all the things at once and everybody's giving you advice on how to live your best life, right?
You wake up, stare directly in the sun, spend 4 minutes with your family, and then move to Austin.
Right. And then make $40,000 in your side hustle, start a podcast, make a podcast about the podcast that you started, all that, right? Okay, so we've done that before. This was Family Guy's take. It's a little bit darker, and it probably is a little bit maybe, I don't know, it's kind of like where if Democrats followed their own advice, they're going to end up at, right?
Okay, man.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, people tuck in. Here we go. Thanks, Family Guy.
How do you know what's inside you unless you test yourself? Don't do 1 push-up. Do 100. Don't run 1 mile. Run a marathon. Don't have 1 family. Have a second family all the way across the country. Don't just have a second family. Have a third family in Santa Fe with an alternative lifestyle. Don't spend any time with the first 2 families. Make a commitment to family number 3 and double down by announcing it at his war hero father's retirement party. Don't go to the funeral, because remember, you got 2 other families to deal with and a marathon to train for. Don't just let Kenneth walk out of your life. Take his life from him. Don't just go to jail. Go to death row by killing the 2 other families. Don't just let anyone have their closure by apologizing. Send a message that you're not afraid of hell.
There's something wrong with us. Why is that so funny?
Because we embrace the LFG, what it requires to be a suspendable. Like, you can't go any other speed other than balls to the wall, pedal to the metal. It just speaks to our spirit animal.
Dude, that is extreme. But that is, if you were to take like a lot of the leftist policies, if you were going to just like basically amp up on steroids, all the lefty ideas, like you might end up in that space, especially when we start talking about some of the alternative lifestyles and putting hormones into people where they do wild stuff. That's like, I guess,
Don't just put makeup on, chop off your genitals, otherwise you're gay.
Yeah, exactly that. Okay, the internet used to be a place for cat videos, Steve. And I'm not a big fan.
Good old days, the
Yeah,
dial-up.
I'm not a fan of cats. I hate cats, actually. Whenever people would tell me that they have cats, I would casually mention that I have a feline elimination service. No one's ever taken me up on my elimination offer, but I do own suppressed 22 pistols. I can quietly dispatch your cat, and I'm happy to dig the hole just so there's one less cat in the world. But the internet was a place for cat videos. I found the only cat video on the internet that I like. Are you ready?
I'm here for it, man.
This guy talks about cats the way that if you have a cat and you want to impress me with your cat, you better talk about it like it's a piece of meat and just come in and say weird things about it. Otherwise, I hate your cat. This is the only guy whose cat I like. Look at this cat.
Look at this cat. This is a cat. Lot of cat. Beautiful body, short, tabby, great coat, beautiful pattern. I love the head. Broad, round, flat, deep break, nice smooth top head. Itsy bitsy teeny weeny ears down on the side of the head. I love it. Nice firm chin. Best in show, everybody.
That's the best in show. That's hands down the best in show. If you want to talk about your cat, you better talk about it like you're just sizing up things. Like, look at this flat head. I like this flat face. Look at these little ears. They're small. They're small ears. There's a lot of
The
cat.
love child of Dr. Phil and Mike Huckabee became a feline aficionado.
Oh, that's really good. That's exactly what that guy looks like. I don't know why he's in a tie. I guess there's some sort of like he's going to get all kinds of stuff on his tie. Luckily, it was like a cat-friendly color, so it was going to like hide
It looks like one
the
of those
hair.
mockumentaries, right? Where they sort of profile like this weird alternative lifestyles, like people.
Yeah, it's like the movie Best in Show, which was a mockumentary of people doing pet shows. I have never seen a cat show, but if you're going to do it, I had a boss once when I was living in Oklahoma, and he used to tell me that his cat was really cool, and I disagree with him just on principle because I don't like cats. And he's like, hey man, you'd like my cat. I'm like, I don't like any cats. And he was like, no, Columbo is a king amongst cats. Because when I got him, I power fed the shit out of him. And I was like, okay, now I'm kind of interested. Like, I kind of want, what happens when you do that? And he's like, he's enormous. He's like 38 pounds. And he's like a 38-pound house cat. He's the size of like a medium dog. And I didn't like it, but I would say you could hold it up and be like, look at this cat. Like, that's a cat. He's got that kind of Conan attitude about it.
I had a SWAT team senior team leader who told us that they went and cleared a house one time, and there was a mountain lion in the basement. That was
Yeah.
their pet. I think that's the appropriate level.
That's
of like,
not
alpha.
that.
That's a Family Guy cat.
Yeah.
That I could get on board with.
Okay, so we did a surveillance once, and I remember taking a picture of this. Sometimes you just see something on surveillance, like you see all kinds of things. I saw one time I was sitting, and there was a black guy walking through a very, very posh white neighborhood outside of D.C. in Alexandria, so it's in Northern Virginia. And he was walking, and he was like hip carrying like this big revolver, and he was wearing a vest and a tie. He looked absolutely absurd, but he had dreadlocks. I can't ever forget this guy because we were on an MS-13 surveillance, and I watched this dude walk by with it was a Kydex. It was an outside the waistband Kydex revolver holster that was kind of flopping there, kind of awkwardly, and he was walking with like a book bag, and he's got like maybe like a purple shirt on with a tie and like a black vest. And I looked at him, and I was like, what am I seeing? That had nothing on watching a lady walk an ocelot through an MS-13 surveillance. So we were in the neighborhood, we're watching this thing, and she comes out of the apartment we're watching, and you're like looking through the binos, you're like, oh, what's going on out there? That's a big ass cat. What is that thing? And then you take pictures of it. You're like, that's a straight up jungle cat that someone illegally smuggled here. There's a feral wild animal, and it's on a collar, and she was walking it. You see
like
weird stuff in the world.
Southeast DC, man. Like, you just never know what you're going to get. It's completely divorced from the rest of the American experience, but I'm sure it was fun for you. At least you weren't doing counterintelligence work inside of a cubicle under fluorescent light bulbs.
Should we lead with horrible things in the FBI? Because I don't even want to spend much time on it, but this actually happened the other day. Do you want to set up this clip with the bagpipes while I find it?
I mean, this was James Dennehy's exit from the New York field office. He's the assistant director in charge, the top dog, the guy who refused a direct order to hand over evidence to the Attorney General of the United States. And then he facilitated his exit on camera. I believe MSNBC was there to report, and bagpipes were playing, and an honor guard was there, and I guess a woman in leather pants.
We're looking for the woman in leather pants. So if you're watching the visual, you're looking for a woman who's got tears wiping out of her eyes with leather pants. Have you ever seen an FBI executive, who are the douchiest people in America? Have you ever seen one retire with a pipe and drum situation?
No, normally they get the folded flag like they're a war widow. This one went over the top. Again, man, we're on that theme of going all the way in.
Yeah, it's like a funeral, because the war widow gets it at a funeral, and this guy got pipe and drums like they were celebrating some sort of heroic life lived and taken in the line of duty. Instead, he was a guy who basically he refused to follow a lawful order that wasn't even that big a deal.
And probably engaged in stolen valor by talking about it, using an entrenching tool in an email when he never served in a war zone that required him to dig a trench.
NBD. All right, here it is. This is gross. And also nothing better than Nicole Wallace breathlessly covering the scene.
An extraordinary scene outside of the New York FBI office in the last hour. Assistant Director in Charge, James Dennehy, who was forced to resign under pressure this week, left the building to cheers from hundreds of his colleagues and the sound of bagpipes. He was forced out after clashing with Donald Trump's Justice Department after the removal of senior FBI leaders and requests for the names of agents who worked on the January 6 cases. He told those gathered that he will be their, quote, best cheerleader on the outside. We'll be watching for that. Another break for us. We'll be right back.
So I don't know if those were hundreds, because I saw maybe a dozen and a half, but I also did see something extraordinary, which is that this happened. And so she's not wrong about it being an extraordinary scene. If she
As a pedantic jerk when it comes to language, extraordinary is actually an apt descriptor of what's going on there. And the fact that there's only a few dozen people there is good, because we should drop the geofence, like January 6 style, and identify everybody who was there so we can fire them.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
WebTA fraud, right? Time card fraud. Did you account for that time? Because that was not a negligible amount of time of your day.
Can we also agree that there were very few men involved in that walkout, which is kind of interesting?
Very few men involved in anything going on at executive level of the FBI.
Yeah, man's man. Okay, so fair enough. All right, so let's get into some real stuff here. I've got a article here. And we're gonna get into some evidence of this is really the way that these people talk. Let's add this on the screen here. Okay, so the GOP must cut Medicaid or Medicare to achieve the budget goals the Congressional Budget Office finds. Nonpartisan bookkeeper. I love that they're nonpartisan. They always love to tout this. They're like, they're nonpartisan as long as they agree with what we say. Okay, so the nonpartisan bookkeeper says there's no other way to cut $1.5 trillion from the budget over the next decade other than getting involved in Medicaid or Medicare. What is your take on a tax cut, just out of curiosity? How would you describe it to somebody if they didn't understand what a tax cut was?
I would describe it simply as you're allowed by law now to keep more of the money that you earned. The government can't take your money from you.
That doesn't sound like the definition that I've heard. So I want to put someone on that's clearly, she's smarter than you are. She's in charge of things. She's a congresswoman. I almost said congressman. What difference does it make? Here is a congresswoman explaining what tax cuts are. See if you can point out any discrepancies, because I think this is pretty fail-safe logic here.
And I want you to understand, I want everyone to understand that tax cuts cost money. We have to pay for them. So every dollar that you spend in federal taxes is going to pay for some rich person's G-Wagon, and it's also going to cut in 8-year-old kids with autism's ability to access Medicaid. That's what they're putting on the table. That's what they're trying to make worse. And frankly, I don't care what party you are, we cannot stand for this.
What does that mean, Steve?
It means that she has a fundamentally different understanding of what your money means, because she feels entitled to all of your money, and she considers it a blessing of liberty, of your liberty, to allow you to keep any of your money. It should all come to the state so that she can siphon off a certain percentage and buy $800 tops, which she only buttons to around belly button line, because she's totally a very serious congressperson who's not just going out there into the TikTok space and trying to, peddle the wares as long as she's got them.
The wares being her cleavage? Is that what we were saying?
Or lack thereof, but clearly that's what.
No, there's real cleavage there. Everyone's seen the AI pictures. What was the G-Wagon comment? She said that it's going to fund somebody's G-Wagon. Does that mean that if they don't take the taxes, then somebody can use their money to buy the car that they choose? Is that what I heard?
They can buy a product that they want, need, or desire in exchange in free commerce with somebody else, who will then take that money and spend it on something that they want. It was essentially like driving the economy forward. Yeah, You're not entitled to do that.
What do you think the net worth of AOC is right now? I'm kind of curious. I'm looking it up.
That's a great question, because she's only been in power since 2018, so she hasn't been able to get the Nancy Pelosi trades. And she actually is opposed, or at least on its face, to the insider trading. Yeah. But I would bet from just her access and influence, she's got to be north of $1 million.
So the other one I was worried about was the new AOC, which is this woman, Jasmine Crockett. Now, for whatever reason, I did a little mashup on her, and it literally took me 5 minutes to put together. It was like a quick thing. I just laid a TikTok video that she made on top of another video where she's talking like she normally does. And so I put this out there the other day. It's got 1 million views so far, and then it looks like Colin Rugg grabbed it and tweeted it out on his own account, and it's got like 1.5 million to 2 million views over there. There's a real appetite to expose falsehood. Do you know what code switching is, Steve Friend?
I'm not familiar with that term. I bet you the concept is something that's not going to be new to me, because it seems like Hollywood for ugly people is politics. So is it something like that?
Okay, so code switching is when you're, let's say, a person from an ethnic minority background, and you live in a particular culture, and then you go and you interact with the predominant culture in the place you live. So like in the United States, you deal with what they're going to call white culture, although I think it's just American culture. You're a black person who lives in a black neighborhood. You have black family members who speak in a particular way. They have a certain dialect, and it comes from poverty or whatever it comes from. This is kind of the claim. And then you go and you speak, and if you want to be successful and you want to work in the white man world, if you want to go work in the predominant American culture, then you have to pretend to be more like them. So you have to act articulate, and you have to speak properly. And we've all met people that speak that way, and they get accused of being not black. And then they get back into their neighborhood, and then they speak black again, and then they're accepted. And they have to code switch between the two places that they're in so that they can be accepted in both cultures. That's the concept. Does that sound familiar?
Tracking with that, and it's also the soft bigotry of low expectations, where all the white people, like the worst people on the earth, like the liberal white women from the suburbs who cut their own kids' genitals off to impress their friends at brunch, who talk, well, look, this black woman's very articulate. That's the code word. You want to talk about dog whistles? Anytime a white person describes a black person as articulate, they're a racist.
And Biden did that, by the way, to Barack Obama. That was like the big thing. He's like, he's the first man.
Clean.
He's nice. He's nice looking. He's clean. He smells good. I like to put my nose near his neck, and he's articulate, and he's a good looking guy, like all that shit. Okay, yeah. So that's all a thing. The problem with code switching is it assumes that where you live is sort of like downtrodden and a little bit less financially well off, and that it has like some sort of ethnic tinge to it, or it has like a unique culture that is not the predominant culture. And then you step in and you have to adjust yourself to be that. What if you're Jasmine Crockett and you're raised like AOC, in a middle class or upper middle class background, that you went to expensive private schools, that your family, did, reasonable white collar jobs, and you didn't have like a real struggling upbringing. For example, apparently she lived in a place where her family could afford to put her in $35,000 a year high schools and $55,000 a year to go to college each year in a private college, which is not cheap. And then your code switches, you go to Congress being elected to be the smartest person or the best representative of the people that are the folks in that district. And then you show up and then you act trashier than you actually are, and you pretend to be something that you are not. Does that still fit that definition of code switching, or is this just acting?
I'm going to go acting, because it is Hollywood for ugly people. The people that are paying attention to this want that role on display because, again, most people on that side are racist, and they think that they need to have representation of what the construct is in their head of people who are darker skin color than them. And clearly they all act like Cardi B, right?
That's how black people act, according to them. I think you're right. Okay, so here's why I think this is really interesting and why it went viral. I've shown this clip before, not these clips side by side mashed up exactly in this presentation, but I've shown the clip of her doing interviews where she's sitting down with a guy and sounding like if you didn't look, you wouldn't know what color her skin was, which is fine. That's America. There's plenty of my friends you could speak on the phone. You wouldn't know what they look like. And it turns out, oh, they're from Taiwan. They're Korean and black, and they grew up in Los Angeles. You wouldn't know what they look like from their voice and their vocal patterns because they just are people in the world. Jasmine Crockett has that in the beginning. Then you see her in Congress and she's like, yeah, they're going on some bullshit, whatever. And she has this kind of like this fake attitude. And I think that the American people's interest right now, or at least what I'm seeing, the sort of social media virality of it is that people are seeing through the bullshit, to use the word that Jasmine uses. So I'm going to throw this up on the screen here for a second. And I think it actually says something bigger, which is why we're able to talk about transgender being a mental illness again. And maybe why we've got a couple of people on YouTube before they strike us out. Here we go.
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. No one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need. Listen, he up there, he's spewing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. Let me just be real. And we weren't gonna sit for that shit. We wouldn't, But when she called me and said, I think it's time for me to retire.
I just think the side by side is what makes it for people. They're like, oh, that is completely falsified. That's completely made up. That's just how it works.
I love how she says, let me just be real, as she's
let me just be real as I'm going to be fake.
And look, this is what's so hysterical about a guy like Donald Trump, who is resonating with regular people, not because he's lived a regular life. He's been a billionaire for decades upon decades, grew up very wealthy, has lived an unusual life, let's say, to the very least, to say the very least. But he is at least authentic in that existence. He's like, yeah, I have my own private jet. I take a crap on a golden toilet. And we're like, well, at least he owns what he is. He's not actually misrepresenting his life. And I think it doesn't matter if it's the same life that I have or you have or anybody else has, as long as somebody is not pretending, that resonates with people. And that's why Jasmine Crockett and her ilk are struggling so hard to connect with the average person. It's not that they have to be like the average person or what the average person perceives to be black from Texas. You just have to be yourself and not.
Yeah. And that's not what black from Texas sounds like anyhow. I do like, there was like some videos, Donald Trump used to do these self-deprecating videos where he would go on and pretend to be like a plumber on SNL. So that was real funny. Or that he was so weird, he would buy like a chicken place and have Trump's chicken. And that's funny. We got a strike for that once for copyright, by the way. I don't know why I'm interested in that right now, but it's funny. Also, there's a great video where he's like running out and he was like, I'm in a big hurry. And then and he's like, where's the car? And they're like, sir, we couldn't get the car here in time. And he was like, I'm buying your car, lady. And she was like, it's not for sale. And he was like, here's a check. And she's like, thank you. Enjoy your car. And then he looks and he goes, whose kids are these? And they're like, let me get the kids out. He's like, I don't have time. I bought your kids, like that's funny because it's self-deprecating and it's pointing out the silliness of somebody who has wealth that just deals at a different level. Yeah, so you're right. He is genuine, at least in that. He never pretended to be poor. He went actually and probably pretended to have more money than he did.
I mean, it's not like
he overdoes it.
The John Kasich, who couldn't wait to tell you that his dad was a mailman, right? Like, because I'm just an average guy. It's like, man, you have not been
Joe Biden did the same thing. He's like, my dad was a car salesman. You're like, your dad owned the car dealership, dude. Like, that's why you have new cars. It's like, give me a break. Like, screw off. How about this guy? This is somebody who also seems like he's very, very genuine. He's doing the TikTok sit down now. He's also doing the hold the little mic. This is Adam Schiff, and he's just letting people know what they need to do. They need to be courageous. That's what's going to turn the tide for them. courage, apparently.
We need to speak out. We need to be courageous. They come after me all the time. Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they call me a criminal. They call me a traitor. Their MAGA minions online come after me to try to intimidate me, to create fear. I'll tell you my response. My response to that is screw you and the horse you rode in on. I hope that is your response too. We must not give in to this climate of fear. We are Americans. If our troops can face the bullets and the missiles and the dangers of combat, then sure enough, we can be courageous at home.
Apparently, he's going to be sending people to combat, yeah?
Well, I mean, he's doing the James Dennehy talking about how he wants to go into combat, right, and dig a trench so that when the whole thing goes kinetic, he'll be prepared to protect himself from those bullets that are flying. When meanwhile, Adam Schiff has never faced any sort of danger. You see his hand there that has no calluses on it. I am concerned about screw you and the horse he rode in on. I think bestiality is a crime, Adam. Why are you
no horse screwing? Let's take him literally.
Advantage of a horse.
Listen, I'll just tell you what I'm really worried about. I'm worried about these this theft of money.
And I want you to understand, I want everyone to understand that tax cuts cost money.
They cost money. Okay, Steve, before we get deeper, speaking of things that cost money, let's do an advertisement for one of the folks who keep this program on the air, and they pay the electric bill over here. That's how this works. This is a trade-off. And so let's say thanks to the folks over at the Wellness Company. What happened to my scene here? What's going on? Hold on a second here. I don't like it when that happens. We have to fix this, Steve. Stand by. Can you handle it? All right, we're just going to leave it. Okay, folks. No one likes being sick. The only thing worse than feeling crappy is trying to make a decision, going somewhere other than my house to get a prescription. That's true. I actually talked about this on the show last night. If you're an adult, you've been sick before, twc.health/Kyle is a way that you can limit one of the worst things about feeling unwell, doing errands. My time is quite valuable. I'm sure yours as well. I don't want to use my downtime to go and use it not for rest, but to run around and stand in pharmacy lines or waiting rooms or go to an urgent care, or we'll text you or call your name over the speaker and let everyone know that you're sick when you're walking around the store, because you can have your pharmacy already at your home. You can prepare so you don't have to repair, and you can get an emergency medical kit at twc.health/Kyle. Their emergency medical kits have up to 8 prescriptions with life-saving medications like ivermectin, generic Z-Packs, amoxicillin, or you can get the contagion emergency kit, which also includes a nebulizer and some additional options like a generic Tamiflu. It's only good if you use it in the first 24 to 48 hours. These are things I've actually given out in hospitals. Check them out. The kit also includes a guidebook so you know what to use them for. Take a 2-minute intake survey. The form is available for you after you do your checkout, and then you set that thing up and it's good to go. It'll be shipped out to you. Free shipping. You can save up to 10%. I think it depends on what you're getting. Use the promo code Kyle. Again, it's twc.health/Kyle. My scenes all fell apart there, Steve. I don't know what happened, but I had the visuals disappear on my screen. I'm sure
Clearly
I didn't get...
not a federal podcast.
This is a federal podcast. How dare you say that? That is not what we're going to do here. We're gonna get into another thing that I thought was really interesting, talking about something to do with the fact that Biden couldn't fix the border issue. You remember this, right? We had a border issue. They've acted like that courage and dollars and grocery store prices were the thing that the election was won on. Was that your instinct as like the way that we ran the election, and why?
Yes. I mean, well, we just needed James Lankford's border bill to be passed, that Donald Trump stopped somehow, even though he was not president and not in power. And now we're going to talk about the price of eggs because reasons, I guess. They're trying to sound relatable again. Meanwhile, it's been Bidenflation for the last 4 years. And they killed 40 million chickens before Donald Trump became president. And they expect people to just say, like, well, I mean, it should be fixed right away.
Yeah, where's Donald Trump coming in with all the chickens? This was the border take. I always like it when a host says, I'm going to tell you my opinion. Can you fact check it and verify that I'm correct? That's my favorite.
Sean Hannity.
I try not to do that to you as often as, but even though I know, because sometimes we've talked in advance, this is a Newsbusters clip that is pretty good about Republicans say Biden doesn't need Congress. He could just pass it by being president. This is one of the things that went on during the State of the Union. Donald Trump said, basically, we just needed a new president. I'm going to show you that he probably was right.
Republicans keep saying Biden doesn't need Congress. He can stop what's happening at the border all by himself. Can you fact check that for us? Because we here all know that's not true.
Republicans have been saying largely wrongly, right, is saying that the president can close the border unilaterally on his own. The president actually doesn't have the authority under law to do that.
There's only so much President Biden can do with executive action, and he did try to do whatever he could.
They actually are doing everything they can.
The president's hands are tied. There's only so much that he can do.
President Biden has issued certain executive orders, but there's only so much he can do within his purview.
What an intractable problem this is for the president with no easy solutions.
No easy solutions here.
There are no easy solutions here, folks.
The president insisting there's only so much he can do without Congress.
How much can actually be done quickly without Congress acting?
How would this happen without the power of the purse, without Congress getting involved?
They need Congress to act to fix the broken immigration system.
This cannot happen without Congress resourcing this.
There's only so.
That's true, apparently. It got fact-checked. Border crossings plunged to lowest level in decades, says new data. No new laws have been passed. Border Patrol apprehensions on the Mexican border. You're looking at the graph right there. You see the peak? Can you see the peak of the amount of crossings that they had to deal with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's... Well,
so that top line right there where it peaked just before Trump came in was 250,000 apprehensions. The second line is 200,000. You see multiple times from 2021 onward. Most of those months are north of 200,000. All of them are north of 100,000. Do you want to know what the number was that that's showing there on the bottom for February of 2025? Can I reveal that to you?
Can't wait.
Take a guess. What do you think it is?
If it's anything less than 300 total, then I'll be disappointed.
8,326 total apprehensions, down from 250,000 like 3 months ago.
And look, he made that comment in the State of the Union or the joint address to Congress that you just needed a new president. And look, I think that both presidents achieved what their goal was at the border.
Yes.
It's not perfect. I mean, I think if Donald Trump is actually sincere in wanting to shut the border down, 8,000 apprehensions, I imagine that some people got through. I mean, this is not going to ever achieve zero along that border unless, you go through some, I don't know, a giant moat with alligators with laser beams attached to their heads on it. So it'll never, ever be completely shut down. But he's getting towards his success. Similarly, Joe Biden let in 10, 20, 30, J.J. Carroll estimates 50 million illegal aliens. That was success for him. That's what he wanted to have happen. It's just a different definition of success.
Listen to this. The number of migrants, I love the word migrants because they're not migrants. All right, so the number of illegal aliens illegally crossing into the southern border plummeted February to the lowest level seen in decades. I have to correct this. According to internal data that was obtained by Axios, the big picture is that the crossings have been trending down for several months, so they say, driven by policies on either side of the U.S.-Mexican border. I'm sure it had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Anything to say that it wasn't Donald Trump that's responsible for this. The Border Patrol, I'm sure that since November, it's basically been trickling down, which is kind of what they're indicating without saying it. Border Patrol recorded around 8,300 apprehensions of migrants. Again, gosh, they love that word, don't they? Unlawfully entering, not in ports of entry, but coming in over the border in some other period. This goes from a downturn. It was 29,000 in January, which was down from 47,000 in December, and now down at about 8,300. So when you're having success, it's always important to try to tug on the heartstrings and get emotional. You need to do something that's going to get people excited. Donald Trump has revived the practice of detaining migrant families with children again.
So he's revived the practice of apprehending illegal aliens? Okay.
Right, and now he's letting them stay. The parents can stay with the kids as they came in illegally, assuming
as
that they are,
opposed to separating families. So are we going to have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in all white crying again, which is totally not a photo op at the border fence?
Yeah, no, I guess so. They're going to put them together. It says ICE on Thursday was detaining the first group of migrant parents. Again, it's pervasive, that language change, and children in a detention facility in Texas designed to hold families with minor children, according to internal government documents obtained by CBS. Why are these news services, Axios, CBS, all the leftist groups, suddenly getting access to all of this government data so that they can go after it? Like, where's that coming from? What are these leaks all about?
Any sort of subterfuge that they can lay down is what's been going on. We are now at a point where people are going to have to realize that just a change in the top, whether it's at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or at the Hoover Building or at DHS, whatever it is not sufficient. We see the James Dennehy being walked out. He wasn't at the top. I mean, he was towards the top, but he was surrounded by other people who were definitely more anonymous than he was. This is rampant within the federal government, within every single agency and department. They're going to throw as many roadblocks as they can, as many landmines as they can. They're going to leak. They're going to do anything they can to throw a wrench into the operation that's going on here, which is the number one mandate that they was sent in November by the American people when they elected Donald Trump was, we have to get a handle on the illegal aliens. We want mass deportation. This is what we want. And the federal government and bureaucrats that are there, entrenched there, are saying, no, we're going to do whatever we can to stop it.
We're going to do what we want. That's what we're going to do. One of the things you just said was a change at the top. And you said they're going to do whatever they want. Here's kind of a good little segue. This is my favorite clip of all time from this particular program. Every time I hear it, I just go, yeah, that just seems true. That this is America 2023, at least.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Just do whatever you want all the time. That's where we're going to go next. That's going to be the thing that we touch on. But let's do promotion for my friends over at Silent before we do that. This, I think, actually the scene is working, so that's helpful. And then we'll get back in, and we're going to get straight into the transgender madness and see if we cannot get ourselves removed from all the places where we want to be. That's just the way it's going to go. Folks, between big government, big tech, between corporate America, criminals, your privacy is constantly under threat, and it is always potentially compromised. There's a 24/7 threat that is going everywhere you go with your phone. There's no other option. You have to protect yourself, and that can start with Silent, slnt.com/Kyle. They make a Faraday product that blocks all incoming and outgoing signals. Something I should have been using last night on our call-in show because I actually put my phone on mute and it didn't work. It makes your devices invisible and safe from the outside world. They've got backpacks, they've got phone sleeves, they've got laptop sleeves. They even have pants if you want to have something like that. If you're a tactical kind of guy and you need to have a signal blocking pocket. Their signal blocking technology blocks wireless signals, all the RF, giving you peace of mind that your data's not going to end up in the wrong hands. It also can protect things like your solar generator. They actually make huge bags that can cover your generator so you don't lose it in an EMP attack if that's something you're worried about. If you're looking for all the contingencies, that's a pretty cool option as well. You simply place your device of any size inside the bag that's made for it, close it, and that's it. You're safeguarded from unauthorized access. You can go silent at slnt.com/Kyle. Again, SLNT, very easy to remember, .com. It's silent with no vowels. Silent.com/Kyle saves you 15%. You get free shipping on qualified orders. The one you're seeing up there is my favorite. It's the E3 Faraday backpack. I've got the roll top backpack as well. That one is TSA proof. This one looks like a regular backpack with normal zippers. You can stay ahead of what's coming for you, and you can secure your privacy today by going silent at slnt.com/Kyle. I've said it a few times. It's pretty good. Link in the show descriptions for all of our sponsors every day. You guys can always check them out. And I'm kind of a gearhead, so I actually have 2 different Faraday products laying around on my desk at the moment. That's just how we roll over here. Steve Friend, Transgender madness. Are you ready? I had kind of an inflammatory thing. Transgenderism or gender dysphoria is a mental illness. Apparently Americans used to know this sort of thing, and now they're rediscovering it. How fun.
DSM-5 had listed their gender dysphoria, and then they tried to say, trust the science, and we'll just change what it says in the book because we want our political outcomes. We're not going to actually be fact-driven, and XY is not, in fact, how things are. And I really do appreciate the tranny flag painted on the forehead a la
What is
Ash
that?
Wednesday.
Yeah, what is going on there? I just saw the picture. I was like, that's the best picture for it. It's some lady who's like put a flag on her forehead. If I were to do word association with you and I were to say party of silence, which party is that?
Party of science. Oh, that's definitely the Democrats, i.e. communists.
Okay, good. So we've got multiple articles here. I put multiple headlines and a lady. That's a lady, for whatever it's worth, as far as I can tell. Biologically a lady.
Yeah, how dare you?
Wearing it. Yeah, how dare I? Okay, so here's the article that comes out. I saw Dr. Eitan Hein covered this. He's the whistleblower that was exposing transgender surgeries happen in Texas. He also, coincidentally, is our Sunday sit down. So if you're listening and you happen to be on our local channel, you guys can find that interview. It's going to come out tomorrow morning. Otherwise, it streams live at 1 p.m. Sunday, and you'll be able to download it all week on Spotify or anywhere else. This is the article. It comes from a new study that was just released. Apparently, you can release these studies now, but you didn't used to be able to, and I've got some evidence to back that up. Transgender surgeries increase the risk of mental health condition and suicidality. Study finds gender dysphoria patients experience heightened psychological stress 2 years after the surgery. This one's written by Fox News. As I said, there's a couple of other places, including the New York Times, that was actually indicating this, but you couldn't talk about it previously. And maybe that's the most crazy thing. Does it shock you to learn that if a man were to cut off his penis, that he would find out later, maybe within 2 years, that he doesn't want to live anymore, or that actually was a really terrible decision? How shocking would that be to you, Steve Friend, penis owner?
that he might have some adequacy problems after that.
I don't know. I just wanted to call you a penis owner.
Be shocked.
It is shocking to think that that would be a thing that you would think is like, oh, this is going to be a solution to my problem. It's like, hey, what's your problem? That's almost biblical, right? Like if your left hand is the thing that is sinning, then you cut off your left hand. I guess if your penis is sinning, we recommend that maybe for child abusers, for like pedophiles, but not for people that just like don't know what to do with it. I just recommend like a course, like maybe a user's manual.
This is, I mean, you said, what is the party of science? What is the party of this ideology? It's a communist, right? It's Democrats. The communists say, like Mao's Great Leap Forward, right? If you want to make an omelet, you're going to have to break some eggs. They are happy to have people die so that they can push forward some sort of malcontent ideology which will shatter the system. And in this country, it can't be the bourgeoisie against the proletariat. It's got to be these social issues, which apparently they've gotten a huge percentage of people to not know where to put what dangles between their legs.
My wife watches a podcast called Fleckus Talks. I'm a big fan of Austin Fleckus. Maybe we'll get him on the program if he'll agree to it. He had a take. He said, who would imagine spending $2 million on a long-term survey when you could have just asked a regular dude at the gas station, like what cutting off his penis would mean to him, and you would have got the same answer. It's like there's a lot of negativity about it. I want to do the numbers because the numbers are fairly interesting. The study focused on 107,583 patients over the age of 18 with gender dysphoria, some of whom underwent surgery, some of whom did not. So science equals, right? We have a control group. So this is everybody's the same and they have the same reported condition. Some are going to get the surgery, some are not.
And a good size sample size.
That's a pretty good size sample. Yep. They determined that the rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidality and substance abuse disorders were significantly higher among those who underwent surgery when assessed 2 years later. Now, that's the key because they probably had some euphoria right off the fact. Men who had surgeries had increased rates of depression by 25% compared to males who did not get the surgery. That was 11.5%. So doubled the number. That's pretty significant. Anxiety rates went from 2.6% in the non-surgical to 12.8%. That's a pretty big jump. That's like 6x, 5x. Same difference in females. Before this, if they didn't have the surgery, they had 14.6% in the non-surgical group. For depression, 22.9%. So not quite double, but getting close to it, probably like a 75 or 80% jump. Females, when it came to anxiety, went from 7.1%, because women are anxious anyway. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. Women are always anxious about something. 10.5% for those who underwent the surgery. That maybe is a little bit less intense, but it's still 50% increase. That's a pretty intense stuff. Surgeries that aimed at feminizing individuals showed particularly high rates of depression. In other words, the men who turned into like some sort of scientific experiment resembling a woman had the worst and the particularly high rates of depression. Again, cutting off your penis makes you unhappy. How much would you pay for that study if you were USAID?
USAID? Oh, it's got to be in the hundreds of millions.
Millions. Okay, now, this is why I think this is kind of wild. Second headline right there. Study finds that LGBTQ plus youth, this reminds me of the Trump is now detaining migrants with family members. Study finds LGBTQ plus youth mental health suffering in states that have anti-trans laws. Just the phrasing of it alone. Do you want to break down some of that? And then we'll get into it. This is coming from PBS.
It is always and forever about language. Anti-trans laws. So laws that say that you can't cut off healthy breast tissue from a young lady because she feels stressed, or you can't cut off the twig and berries of a boy because, I don't know, maybe he's got autism. I mean, even just larger consideration of medical science. Like the advancements we've made in the last 100+ years are remarkable. I mean, you talk about back in 200 years ago, they used to use leeches and bloodletting, and we're like, that's barbaric. How could they did exploratory surgery back in the 1800s? That's crazy. And now, you know, we're going to look forward into the future. We're going to say at one point, like, wait, you guys gave poison to people because they had cancer? It's like, well, that's all we knew at the time. But right now, in the exact present, if somebody said to you, hey, I'm kind of feeling a little bit depressed, you should cut off your penis. We know that that's crazy. Now,
it will change your attitude, most likely. But, you know, for the better, it turns out probably not based on these studies. If anybody wants to read a really good take on this, read the last 5 pages of the book Lost World by Michael Crichton, who was a physician and was an author. And he's one of my favorites. And I happen to have that book. And it's one of my favorite books of all time, simply because it has this crazy story about dinosaurs and technology and all this other stuff. And at the end of it, it ends with the idea that there are some factual realities of the world. If you're sitting in a boat and you can feel the water, you know, rocking your boat, that's real. If you put your hand in the water and you can feel that that it's cold. That's real. But all the fantasies about science end up being replaced with better and newer fantasies that are more and more sophisticated, and they know more, and they laugh at the people behind them, whether it be the four humors or leeches or draining things or all the other kind of crazy stuff that we used to think about. Science is always moving forward, and it always is a partial understanding. For some reason, we decided to redefine gender. This article that you're seeing there, that headline, is talking about how people are trying to stop. This is totally nonpartisan. Ali Rogan talks to the Trevor Project founder, CEO James Black, about a study and how it affects the young people's mental health. And then it's followed immediately by, and that was done in October of last year. So you have timeline, okay? This is also followed by this new piece here. This is almost identically opposite. It's the mirror inverse of the study that went out with 107,000 people. Transgender youth have better emotional health after taking hormones, new study finds. That's from February 25th. You think that those things were timed in order? That's from Scientific America, that third headline on the screen.
Yes, because they're advocacy groups now. They're not actually interested in facts and doing the scientific process where we have a hypothesis, we use a control group, an independent variable, and then whatever the answers are, that's what the answers are. We don't go in with a preconceived outcome that we want to have happen, and definitely don't have a political consideration. But now that the president of the United States is mean and orange, and as they like to say, literally Hitler, we have to push forward and say that the science is actually what our political outcomes are.
They actually made it one sentence before they mentioned Donald Trump in this Scientific America. I kid you not. So I'm going to read you the first two lines from this article. Suicide attempts among transgender and non-binary youth jumped by as much as 72% from 2018 to 2022 in states that had recently passed laws to curtail their rights. That's wild. Sentence number 2. And President Donald Trump took this onslaught to the federal level last month when he signed an executive order to cut federal medical care support for trans people aged 19 and younger, which 2 federal judges have since temporarily blocked.
Do you think that there's a correlation between cutting off your genitals and then Donald Trump living rent-free in your head, or is it more causation?
I don't know which one is first, but they're obviously related based on my non-scientific evidence. The last article that you see headline on there, U.S. study on puberty blockers goes unpublished because of politics. Doctor says, can you guess where that came from? That sounds like a pretty reasonable statement. Where did that come from?
Definitely not NPR.
That came from the New York Times.
Wow.
Right?
Allegedly a newspaper at one
allegedly
point. Isn't that
what
Andrew Klavan says?
He says a former newspaper.
Former newspaper.
Yeah, love Andrew Klavan. Okay, so the article from PBS, which says that the LGBT youth are suffering because of the laws, was October 20th of 2024. And this is what I'm most interested in. This other article was also published on the 23rd. So it was published 3 days later and updated the day after that. October 24th is the most recent update, 2024. So you have a study that says the youth are suffering because of the laws that are going on in all these mean states. Meanwhile, an influential doctor and an advocate for adolescent gender treatments said she was not allowed to publish a long-awaited study on puberty-blocking drugs because of the charged American political environment. The doctor, Johanna Olson Kennedy, began the study in 2015. That's a multi-year study. That's almost 10 years. Multi-million-dollar federal project on transgender youth. She and her colleagues recruited 95 children from across the country and gave them puberty blockers to stave off permanent physical changes like breasts or a deepening voice, which could exacerbate gender distress known as dysphoria. And then they went out and they studied the outcomes of it. And it turns out that the outcomes were not positive. It actually didn't help a whole lot. And she couldn't publish it because it might actually set people back. The longest running study, or that long running study, said the drugs did not improve the mental health condition in children with gender distress, and that the findings could be weaponized by opponents of using said care, aka we might lose some money from it.
So this doctor, who allegedly took the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, probably felt that what this study involved was not doing harm. There was informed consent involved in these 95 kids who took hormones to stop their bodies from developing naturally. And then because she followed the scientific process like she's supposed to, came to a conclusion that contradicted her preconceived notion. And then she maybe thought, oh, wait a minute, we might be doing harm to people. We need to stop this. And that was suppressed.
But it'll totally destroy my business of transgender care, Steve Friend.
Objection. It's devastating to my case.
That's right. That conclusion seemed to contradict the earlier description of the group, which Dr. Olson Kennedy and her colleagues noted that 1/4 of the adolescents were depressed and suicidal before the treatment. And then they came out and found that more were after. And so, it just didn't work. It just wasn't good for them. We don't want our work to be weaponized, she said. It has to be exactly on point, clear, and concise, and it takes time. In other words, it has to say the thing that we wanted it to say. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get money to keep doing the thing that we've been doing. And that, to me, is insane, that they would go after kids that way.
That they would go after kids that way, and then also continue to spend the money, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez perspective of all of your money that we have to have, that you're not entitled to, we have to push it over to scientists so they can have jobs, because it's a jobs program, so that they can then circle back the exact political outcome that we want to have happen, so we can continue to prop up our government and allow it to grow. It's almost like it's designed to work this way, diametrically opposed to the interests of the American people and our well-being.
Some of the other things that were on the docket when people went to the polls, when they went to the voting booths in November, tariffs, was that something that Donald Trump was pretty clear about, that he was going to do them?
That's his one North Star. He's been on tariffs for my entire life.
Yeah. Okay. And then also Ukraine, right? He said he would solve the problems and fix that. So I want to end with those two things. I think the transgender piece is interesting in so much as the language, and they've predetermined the outcomes. That's the party of science. So everything else they say is kind of silly, and they're really, really upset about it. I've got a very succinct idea about what Canadians want. Let me start with the article here. Should we show the article on the screen? There we go. Okay, elbows up, how Canadians are fighting back against Donald Trump's tariffs. Apparently, they're fighting back by taking booze that they've already bought, that they've already paid for, that are already in inventory, and they're removing it from the shelves in some sort of performative theater. It makes me think they don't understand what tariffs are. Is that possible?
Yes, but I mean, again, Donald Trump lives rent-free in all of these deranged heads.
Okay, well, I've got a coherent and clear and concise, let me see, point, clear and concise argument for what Canadians want. Comes to us courtesy of our friends at South Park, who understand Canadians better than anybody. And this is what Canada is arguing for when they are saying that they want the tariffs that the United States has recently put on, 25% on all the stuff coming into the United States from Canada. They want to be able to offer tariffs on U.S. products, whether it be meat or dairy or things like that, which are 200+% tariffs. Okay. They want to be able to just do this. They just want more money. Is that not what they want?
What exactly does Canada want?
We want more money. Yeah, more money.
More money from where?
Just more money, you know. Canada doesn't get enough money. Other countries have lots of money. We want some of that money. How about the internet? The internet makes lots of money, so give us some of that money. Yeah. Give us internet money.
Mr. Bootman, you seem to not understand how global economics works. I think
Don't give me that fat cat fancy lip wiggling. Are you going to give Canada more money or not?
Give me some of that fat cat fancy wiggling. Do it, Steve. Are you going to give Canada more money or not?
It's a more coherent economic argument than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez could muster.
I don't even know what the hell to say to that. It's so good. This was CNN's one of their top stories. It was like a slow news day over at CNN. Replacing Californian tomatoes with Italian tomatoes. Ohio-made pepperoni meats are now being produced in Ontario and Quebec. Coca-Cola with sparkling water and sweetener is now going to be sweetened with Canadian maple syrup instead of high fructose corn syrup or whatever. That actually sounds better. I would actually do that. I would take a Canadian Coke that has maple syrup. That sounds awesome. Okay, at the end of January, Donald Trump has ramped up the threat to annex Canada and wreck its economy. And so people who are running pizzerias are now going to do things like get Italian tomatoes, and they're going to get different meats. That's how they're going to do it. Fancy lip wiggling, if you ask me.
I am tremendously entertained, and it's out of the Canada context by the fact that Trump's sort of laid out what his policy what his preferences are. Like, I want to stop the war in Ukraine, right? And they're so deranged that they're saying things like, we have to keep up the fight. And Donald Trump says, I want Europe to pay more. And they're like, all right, we're going to hold the line here, and we're going to do exactly what Donald Trump wants, but we're going to say we're doing what Donald Trump wants to oppose him. So Europe's going to step up and stand in the gap to defend Ukraine and negotiate a peace. And Donald Trump's sitting here like, that's exactly what I wanted. They're like, yeah, but we're doing this to oppose you. Okay.
He is getting what he wants. There's an entire article, Can NATO Stand Without the United States? And what's the entire purpose that he was doing this stuff? He wanted them to up their dollar amount and punch back into this. He wants the Canadians to basically realize hey, this is not necessarily a fair deal. So If you want more money, which I don't know why he says it that way, but it's my favorite. That's my favorite part of the whole clip. We want more money. Snow Mexicans don't talk like that. Let's be real. Snow Mexicans are real people. They're not cartoons.
I did like that prime minister or whatever his role was, Premier Ford, who was talking about like, we're the biggest importer of alcohol and we're going to push back on you.
We're drunken booze
self-owning
louts.
for 500, Alex.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty funny stuff. And his brother was a crackhead, which is also funny. And, whatever. These people are they're kind of comical in and of themselves. Like Justin Trudeau, somebody's been doing some really funny Justin Trudeau lip read videos and making him say really funny stuff that's very soft and effeminate. Makes me laugh.
And this entire last couple minutes of making fun of Canada, if a Canadian encountered us on it, they would apologize.
Noted. Yes. Well, the national anthem for Canada is, in fact, Justin Bieber's song, I'm Sorry. So I just instruct them to sing their own Snow Mexican national anthem. The other thing that was out there, you alluded to it, the sort of like, we're going to go ahead and resist the United States by doing what the United States wants over in Europe, is this Ukrainian thing. Here's an article that was coming from NBC. They're very, very upset if Donald Trump doesn't share intelligence with Ukrainians, who really aren't like an ally, as far as I can tell. They're corrupt and we've been throwing a bunch of money at them. If we don't share all of our intel with them, then they're going to lose lives, which they continue to lose. Anyway, that was confusing to me. So I've got a kind of a really good take. This is, okay, do you want sensible take first or do you want comical take first? You get a choice.
Oh, I got to have my dessert first,
Always.
man.
I knew this about you. I knew this. All right, so here's Freedom Tunes. This is Seamus hitting what's going on with, let me see if I can, there it is. This is kind of like a sum up of what happened in the Oval Office the other day.
Mr. President, you're not listening to what we're trying to explain to you.
Whatever. No one cares.
Mr. Zelensky, it's very important that you understand what we're trying to tell you here in that.
Whatever.
Can you show a little gratitude?
Whatever. Who care? Who care? My name is J.D. Vance. Who cares?
How about instead of insulting us, you say thank you? How about you say thank you for everything we've done?
Say thank you. I don't care. I don't care.
Say thank you.
No, thank you. What was that? No, Trump, no! Please. You totally kicked those guys' asses.
Was that not exactly what you just described in cartoon form?
100%. I mean, they are resisting Donald Trump by doing everything he wants. The best part about that cartoon is how they got the Donald Trump measuring shelves mannerisms.
Yeah, he's like constantly like, oh no.
He's doing the okay sign and going with as he's sitting there. I thought he was
trying to make peace. I thought he was trying to make peace with the peace fingers. He's like the Jesus peace hands.
He's playing the okay game, man.
He's like, hey, listen. Oh no, I think you're going to upset the JD. He's about to rip. He's pre-touring that shirt. You're about to get smashed. And then he does some kind of like grab and like slam suplex move. Fantastic stuff. All right, so that's not a particularly articulate way of saying this. Marco Rubio actually did the articulate way, and he's wearing the single, forget the tranny flag on the forehead. This is the single biggest Ash Wednesday cross that has ever been done on a very national platform. Go Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's not a big guy. I'm not a big guy, but I've probably got 40 or 50 pounds on Marco Rubio. I could eat the entire Marco Rubio like on a buffet. Just take him, carve him up. He's a tiny little roast. I will tell you off camera what my attorney said about Marco Rubio when we were in the same restaurant one time, and it was not very nice, and it did have to do with other men. All right, here we go.
It's been very clear from the beginning that President Trump views this as a protracted, stalemated conflict, and frankly, it's a proxy war between nuclear powers, the United States helping Ukraine and Russia. And it needs to come to an end. And no one has any idea or any plan to bring it to an end. The plan of the Ukrainians up to now and their allies on Capitol Hill and the people you talk to in other countries is, let's just keep giving them as much as they need for as long as it takes. That's not a strategy.
It's not a strategy.
That's exactly where we're at right
that
now.
Was
right?
dinner.
Like
that was dinner. Dinner's less fun than dessert.
It gets down to like I don't want to go back into the Vladimir Putin talking to Tucker Carlson hundreds of years history where he just filibustered forever. Like if you're a parent, I'm a parent. If you have kids that are fighting, you want the fight to stop. What do you say? I don't care who started it. We just have to stop. And that's where we're at right now. And if you want to adjudicate what happened in the past, like there's a time for that. But right now, it's now projected 1.5 million people have died. and we have the opportunity to stop that from happening and stop the entire globe from pushing towards thermonuclear war, I think that's probably an objectively good thing. And if you're against that, I have to question what your motives are.
You've got 40 pounds of Marco Rubio too. I just want to let you know. You're not a big guy either.
I don't know, man. When you factor in the ears, those satellite dishes he's got there, we might be,
If he's walking, that provides lift.
Man, that means he would just pick up steam.
Do you know I made
a race?
I made a comment about Bernoulli's principle here, and I got a call in, and I got Dan, who's one of our regular chatters, to call in and tell me that I was wrong and I didn't understand Lyft, and I think he's probably right. I didn't look into it, but I just assume he did because I've seen some of the contraptions he makes in the engineering background, so I assume that he's actually correct. That the Bernoulli's principle that I thought about what causes lift and surface area under and above a wing. So maybe the ears actually don't provide lift. I don't know. I don't want to get wrong. I got another thing that
aerodynamics knowledge for me is Dumbo, so that's what
Dumbo seems like he could fly only from watching the cartoons, right? All right, so there's that. Another thing that got done the other day, and this is sort of like in the line of, and this is actually kind of a stealth move, and I didn't see a lot of news coverage of this, but it actually is really wild. Do you remember the headline that Perkins Coie, who was like one of the lawfare firms responsible for the Russiagate hoax, had a classified FBI terminal skiff built into one of their offices? Do you remember hearing that and how freaking wild that was, and like nobody talks about it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is a government facility that's in a private law firm. It has no place there.
It doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump apparently did not forget, or at least the people that are keeping track of what needs to be done. So he did a signing the other day, like he's been doing like these executive orders, like Madhouse style. There's actually a CNN article that said that the political debris from Donald Trump's administration's like own actions is starting to clutter up their own pathway. I don't actually think that's true. I think it's all behind them, like wreckage in a car action. They're the drunk driver and everyone else behind him is smashing into stuff. But he just did this. He just pulled their security clearance, and they're no longer going to have access to classified things, which they probably should have never had in the first place. It's truly crazy to me. Anyway, it's nice to see they're not forgetting some of the wild stuff that was out there. It does seem like Trump is still doing Russiagate stuff. I'm not mad about it, but check this out.
Sir, your administration has made it a priority both to end lawfare and the weaponization of government, and also to hold those who have engaged in lawfare accountable. One of the law firms that has been involved in that is called Perkins Coie. That's also a law firm that has engaged in unlawful DEI practices. This executive order will suspend security.
And I've watched it take place.
This executive order will suspend security clearances and access to certain federal resources for that law firm, and also launch a holistic review of unlawful DEI practices at some of the nation's largest law firms.
This is an absolute honor to sign. What they've done is it's just terrible. It's weaponization. You could say weaponization against a political opponent, and it should never be allowed to happen again.
All right, and then he does the big signature on there. I love that he gives commentary on all these things too. Like
I like the visual too of what's on his desk. I don't know if it's on purpose, but I definitely caught on. There's a phone and a pen. And it's kind of like a giant middle finger to Barack
I'm looking
Obama.
over at the corner of the screen where it's still on there. Yeah, there's like one piece of paper. That's basically it. It's I got a phone and I got a pen, Barack Obama moment.
That and the Gulf of America in the background.
Yeah, that just seems unnecessary at this point. Like, now he's just doing the middle finger, but I don't hate it either. It makes me kind of laugh. All right, I want to do one more story because it's also kind of interesting. DOE, we talked about it yesterday, Department of Education could be on the axe in addition to having fake surveys and nonsense and training academics that don't make any sense. CNN is very, very upset about the possible dismantling of the Department of Education, this is such a crazy thing. This is the same thing as tax cuts cost money. Dismantling of education department puts future trillions of dollars of student loans in question. What does that mean? And I'm gonna play you a video of a guy who used to work for DOE so we can play that game too.
It means that we're not going to be able to convince kids to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an education that's not going to benefit them in the future, and they're decrying that as a bad thing.
I feel like I've got a Chuck Schumer. No, I've got a Mike Rowe thing talking about it. I'm going to go dig up the Mike Rowe clip in a second. This guy that you're seeing on the screen used to work. His name is Arn something or other. I can't remember his name. It's probably on here somewhere. He has a hoodie on. You were making a comment about his hoodie. It says education is a human right. First of all, I don't know where they come up with these things are human rights. That, like, education is not a human right. That's the craziest thing in the world. Even saying things like water and air are human right. It's like you have a right to them, but people can stop you from getting them. It's happen for all time.
When we get done, I'm going grocery shopping, and I'm saying waiting in line to check out a Walmart is not
expedient checkout is a human right, Steve Friend. You should make a poster with that on it. Okay, so this guy goes on to this like little take. I'm gonna see if I can add the video. I think I've got this over here. Let me make sure I did the right video, and then I'm gonna go find the one which was Mike Rowe kind of talking about the problem. Let me see.
And I want you.
No, that was not her. What did I do? I had it over here. Education is a human right somehow. Where did I look? I just lost it.
We need
it's Adam Schiff. I lost it. I tried to add it back in, and I lost the damn clip. So stand by 1 second. I'll just grab it real quick. It blows my mind that these people use like is a human right as a standard thing. All right, here's the clip.
Sources tell CNN White House officials have prepared an executive order directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon to begin the process of dismantling the Department of Education. Well, this now is Arnie Duncan, former Education Secretary during the Obama administration. Secretary, thank you so much for being with us. Dismantling the Department of Education, what does that even mean, do you think, and who would be most affected?
Well, it's hard to tell. And, he had an executive order that he was supposed to sign today on that. He probably saw the polls that 2/3 of Americans are against it, so he backed off. He saw the polls, 2/3 of people against tariffs, so he backed off. And folks like Trump are sort of cowards at heart. And so it's hard to tell what will happen. If they just simply move parts of the Department of Education to other agencies, to Treasury, to HHS, to Labor, whatever, what you just have is a bureaucratic nightmare. And when you walk into a store, they say, you break it, you own it. If things start to fall apart in D.C. because they have moved things around, they are going to own it. And that's something they're not going to want to see happen if they start to take away educational opportunity from vulnerable children.
Well, one of the things that you hear in this discussion is, we want to move education back to the states. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I say, I'll be the first guy to say mission accomplished. He can put that banner up because guess what? That's already where the action is. That's where everything he says is so dishonest, so disingenuous. As 90% of K-12 funding is already at the state and local level. So the action is already at the states. What the Department of Education does do, in all seriousness, is provide additional resources for our nation's most vulnerable children, for our 3- and 4-year-olds trying to have access to high-quality pre-K, feeds children who are hungry and need a meal at lunch, children who live below the poverty line, English language learners, 7.5 million children with special needs are rural children, billions of dollars for young people to go to college on Pell Grants when their families, aren't wealthy, first-generation college goers.
Arnie Duncan, Secretary of Education under Barack Obama, wearing a hoodie which doesn't actually make him look good, like doesn't give him a V-taper because he's such a beta male, and he has the Hope and Change poster over his shoulder like a complete beta whose entire life is based around the political accomplishments of another man. And he actually makes the point that we're trying to make about the Department of Education. He's like, it should be back at the states. I agree. What do we do at the Department of Education? Nothing important, that means. It means that department should go away. And particularly when you're saying, what do they actually do? We push out Common Core, which is what Arnie Duncan was a big advocate of. We help to push out school lunches. But in order to get the school lunches, you have to allow men to play against women in sports and shatter their orbital sockets on the volleyball court or go into their bathrooms. It's the entire social engineering that goes on at a federal level. It needs to go away, and he actually made the case for it.
Do you know what the budget was in 2024 for the Department of Education?
How many billion?
$268 billion for that 5% that he was talking about. The state of Texas.
A lot of overhead.
Yeah, the state of Texas is pretty big, and they have a $54 billion budget.
How many walls could we build for the Department of Education along the southern border when then we wouldn't actually
What does it have to do with the federal government?
Aliens?
I don't understand what the federal government is. He just said it was like 7.5 million people are going to have access to English as a second language because they came here and they don't speak English, which is pretty specific group of people that are doing that thing. It's just wild that they make these arguments and they're against themselves. They can't help it. Here is Chuck Schumer making an argument that actually falls completely flat. I don't think any of it's true, but he's also holding the mic in TikTok fashion. Again, they've learned the weirdest lesson, and so they're letting like old boomers that are completely out of touch, try to do like young people media, and they do it awkwardly and they look ridiculous. He should have just clipped this on his tie. It would have been easy.
American kids depend on our public schools. Over 90% go to public schools. And now Donald Trump and his new education secretary, Linda McMahon, want to end the Department of Education. Putting someone in charge of an agency who wants to detonate it on day one is absurd. Can we make our schools better? For sure. But you don't use a chainsaw and knock out all the programs that people need. You know what's going to happen if they just get rid of the Department of Education? People's property taxes are going to go up. Children with disabilities are not going to get educated at all. And every person in the public school system will suffer. The teachers and most of all the kids. This makes no damn sense. It's nasty. And why are they doing it? Why are they doing all these things, including ending the Department of Education? One reason only. Tax cuts for the billionaires club. We're going to fight this tooth and nail because it hurts school kids, the last people we should hurt.
You see, here's the thing. Tax cuts cost money.
and it hurts the worst group, right? Well, we got to protect the school children, the ones that you sent home for years because
I heard
of a
that's
chest cold.
That's exactly it. And I also heard that Nancy Pelosi only ran for office because of the children. So
90% of kids go to public school.
That seems like the problem right there.
A problem there. Or maybe we should just let them be independent of the federal government, which is making calls on how the curriculum should go, or at least on how we allow students to interact and what bathrooms they're allowed to use because of the federal dollars that are attached to it. If it's such a small footprint on the state level, then it should be negligible. Let us run it the way we want.
It turns out that everything we've said about this is always the case. Like, school should be handled as close to you as possible. We made an argument yesterday. I made an argument that if you let your roof sit for 20 years, that is falling and in danger of collapsing on the students' heads, and you thought that was okay because you were waiting for daddy government, that's almost exactly the problem that we see on every single Indian reservation. Somebody will come in and save us, so we just wait, and I'd rather wait. It's actually the same attitude I saw in federal agents. Let me take it from the lowest and some of the poorest people, right? You've seen this on Indian Res. I'll have you comment on it. People who are waiting for the federal government to come save them is the same attitude that FBI agents had when I showed up with a gun belt that I bought with my own money. They're like, dude, how much did you spend on that? I'm like, I don't know, $500-600. And they're like, if you just been on SWAT and waited like 3 or 4 years, somebody would have given it to you. And I'm like, oh, but then I wouldn't have had it for 3 or 4 years worth of arrests. Turned out I didn't know I was only going to get 6 years in the FBI before they kicked me out. So I wouldn't have had it for most of the time that I was in. How about this idea that you wait for the federal government to come save you?
It is compounded beyond what anybody could possibly imagine. I remember one of the saddest stories, and she was a really smart girl. She happened to, become a girlfriend of a bad dude, and she got roped into bad things. But she was telling me when I was interviewing her that her goal in life was to get through high school, go to college, become a grant writer so that she could write a grant that would then get a Dollar General put on the reservation. And the reservation was waiting and had its hopes in her to matriculate through school, and that included college, and she could become a grant writer so that they could get a Dollar General put on them. Talk about waiting on some assistance from the feds.
She just got there fast enough. Yeah, it's an attitude. I mean, and it's what domesticated people look like. It looks like what captured populations. This is the opposite of what we talked about last night on our call-in show. So if you guys are part of our locals channel, you probably saw that. The idea that the American contingency, be your own first responder. Nobody's going to come save you. That is the American way. This is like antithetical, I think, to the American value, which is that, solve your own problems. Don't wait for the government to come do it.
Otherwise, you look like that cat that's just allowing Dr. Phil to rub your ears.
I apparently just set off our chat by saying that I had a $500 gun belt. Apparently, they've never gone out there and bought professional tools. If you guys want to go check them out, GBRS makes really good stuff, and it starts at about $300 for the basic belt, and you start adding accessories. You put a holster on it. It's easy, $500-600. I probably have $1,000 into my gun belt. Like, you've seen the stuff you guys had when you were issued on SWAT. Those things are not cheap. It's just pouches cost money, holsters cost money, all of your medical kit costs money. So all that stuff, it's not inexpensive to go and get good kit. But my theory was professionals have professional tools. Unless you work for the federal government, you just wait for someone to assign it to you. Unlike mechanics everywhere who work on cars that literally show up with their own Snap-on tool boxes, right? They show up with a trailer for their own tools because people are expected to have real tools unless you work for the federal government. Then you wait.
You wait, and then hopefully they get to you before you get the honor guard walking you out with bagpipes.
Shoot. All right. I'm going to give you a chance to plug the AMRAD podcast, what you guys have coming up on Saturday. Then I've got a fun thing because we're bigoted. We're going to do a palate cleanse on that. And I also want to do a little teaser of the Sunday sit down that we do with Dr. Heim. So go ahead and fire off on the AMRAD. I'm going to give you the screen.
Everybody, join us tomorrow, Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Time, the American Radicals podcast, Garrett O'Boyle and myself on rumble.com/amradpod. We're actually going to be joined for a small time by Joe Oltman, who is friend of the Suspendables. He's kind of got this weird background, and he's interviewed us, and we kind of want to interview him because he's a little bit like Forrest Gump. He's had his hand in some counterintelligence affairs and some tech affairs and some election affairs. Interesting guy. We want to get to the bottom of his story. And then we're also going to break down James Dennehy's farewell email that he sent out to the New York field office about the top 10 things he's going to miss about being in the FBI. He's a douche canoe, and we're going to laugh. It'll be a good time. Join us tomorrow, 10:30 Eastern Time on rumble.com/amradpod. Have a great weekend, guys.
There it is. All right, Steve Friend, I'll say adios, dude. You want to sit quietly and watch the palate cleanse because you might get a kick out of it. I'll leave you that. Let's start with this little teaser video. I played one last night. I'll throw you on the screen here for it too. This is Dr. Heim talking about some of the effects of COVID coming from a surgeon's perspective and a guy going through med school who actually has a heart. He talked about it kind of ripping out some of his heart just watching this stuff going on. And I think it's kind of moving. You guys will enjoy this conversation. It's very genuine. It's very human.
This was during the height of the lockdowns. And all this was able to happen because these kids weren't in school for extended periods of time. Parents lost their jobs, right? They had gone crazy. Wow, so many people I would take care of every single day, people who are older, and they would suffer alone in this vortex of despair because it wasn't only the physiological disease that killed them. It was the despair of not having their family member there. And when you think about it, the most important time when someone dies is that semicircle of people that forms around the foot of their bed. And the moment they take their last breath, they see the soul of the person they love the most ascend into the great beyond, into heaven. The reassurance of when you die, of having your family members there is to know that the legacy of what you left and that the people you love will be there around you and that a part of you will always remain some part in this world. But that was gone for so many people.
It's pretty gut-wrenching to think about some of the cost that was actually on the folks in the medical industry that got co-opted into some of this stuff, and they didn't necessarily agree to it, and they realized that they were quiet, and then some people spoke up, and when they did, they paid a tremendous cost. We talk about the legal debt that Dr. Heim's family has taken on, $2.2 million to defend against a case that never even made it to trial, if you guys can imagine that. So it's a pretty good one. You're going to enjoy that. You can join us early. If you want to see it tomorrow morning, you can do so by joining us on KyleSeraphin.com. Otherwise, you can wait on rumble.com/KyleSeraphin, or you can do it at YouTube. It's at Kyle Seraphin, X at Kyle Seraphin. That will stream live on 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And you can always catch it in the replay also on Spotify. If you want to set the download, you guys can just put us on notification and it'll pop up for you over there. These things are taped. Obviously, we tape them during the week so we can get them set up. And then they're streamed so that the chat can happen if you guys want to talk about it and discuss, because there is a community that likes to see what these are all about. So we'll do that. If you've been offended today, you're not alone. You're probably a Democrat. And so we have some very offended people. I have a little kind of take on offensive. What happens when you run out of things to be offended about? Because there's too many things. That's maybe what we did for you today. If you were really upset about transgender mental illness, enjoy today's palate cleanse before we sign off.
Don't you see how this could be offensive to a real, authentic Mexican?
Hey, can I just say that I'm Mexican and this doesn't bother me at all? Because these tacos are great.
Okay, sir, I appreciate your feelings on the matter, but I don't need you to be a mouthpiece for an entire cuisine. Okay, as long as a white man's doing the cooking, I won't be eating here.
Oh, I'm not the cook. Guillermo's the cook.
Guillermo? Okay, wow. Guillermo, let me guess. You've got some poor Mexican dude back there slaving away for $5 an hour so that you can call these tacos authentic. Excuse me, senor. You don't need to work here. You can open your own taco truck.
Guillermo doesn't speak English.
야! 고기도 필요해!
기다려!
빨리 그만하고 빨리 움직여! 알았어, 씨발!
I'm just surprised you actually don't know what to be offended by right now, do you?
No,
This is like watching a computer glitch.
That's where we're at right now. The Trump administration is not creating political wreckage in its backstory and creating so much. What it's doing is it's taking these up-talking liberal ladies and giving them so much to be upset about that they're computer glitching. They're offended by so many things at once, they don't even know where to go with it. All right, that's what we're going to leave you with. That and remember, if you guys want to find the cat video, we'll go put it on KyleSeraphin.com because that's how you should be talking about cats we'll go back to the internet the way it used to be. All right. Really appreciate all of you listening. Thanks for being with us. I know we went extra long today. We'll just call that the consequence of a friendly Friday. God bless you. See you again after the weekend, or we'll see you on the Sunday sit down if you want to join us for that. Look forward to talking to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.